please. All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the 3-day tool of today's training on sustainable biodiversity management. So this morning, we're going to have a welcome and agenda and ice break, which will last for 10 minutes. We're going to have a recap of what we did on Mondays. It's also going to last for 10 minutes. And we're going to discuss the impact of production system and agricultural practices on biodiversity. We're going to have a plenary session, and we're going to discuss what is the difference between the impact of biodiversity at the plot and landscape level in your respective horticultural farm. And to add to that, we're going to discuss what are the advantages of agroforestry system for a plot. We're going to have a break of 5 minutes, and then we're going to proceed to a breakout session, provided we are many enough to go to the session. And there we'll be discussing agroforestry system, irrigated cultivation system, organic cultivation system, agroecological cultivation system. We're going to give room for question and answer, and we're going to and we're going to navigate through with a nice time today. Jonathan, can you hear me, please?
Recording in progress.
Hello.
All right. Right.
Can you hear by don't have a stable internet? I'm traveling, please.
Hello. Please, we can hear you.
So like I said, we're looking at the itinerant cultivation system today. And this type of system is the polyculture system. Like I said, it's like the old type of system that we use hoe and cutlass. Another thing about this system is that it depends solely on the traditional seeds. And there's a lot of soil erosion that happens in this type of system. The system lacks techniques to fight against erosion and the destruction of biomass with fire. This is the type of system that we see in some places, for example, Samati in the Volta region, where they set the rice farm on fire. It is an itinerant cultivation system. Also, this system also means that it damages the land. The land is totally damaged when you overuse the land and you cultivate with there's erosion, there's water erosion going on over time, and then you burn the biomass. Then there's a lot of pollution also in the environment. So these are the impact or the description of this type of system. So what are the impacts on the plot, meaning on the area that this type of cultivation is taking place? It leads to deterioration of soil fertility, it decreases inorganic material in the soil and the ability to retain water. There is decrease in water infiltration, elimination of plant species. These are the negative impacts that we see on this type of system. Like I said last week, on Monday, sorry, every type of system you practice has the negative and the positive impact. There is no system that does not have negative and positive impact. So the positive impact on this system, are you hearing me? Are you, Matthew, am I audible?
Yes, please, madam.
Okay. So the positive impact of this system is that because they practice crop rotation, they practice long-term fallow period, there's recovery of soil fertility, partial recovery of the vegetation cover, repopulation of the fauna, organisms and microorganisms in and on the soil. We will look at the impact on the landscape. The impact on the landscape, it means in general, like if you look at the landscape like a community, what is the impact of this type of system? It leads to deforestation. There's silting of rivers and water sources. There's destruction of ecological niches. There's destruction of ecological corridors. There's increase in hunting pressures on animals. And also there are positive impacts. What are the positive impacts? We have preservation of crop diversity because they do a lot of crop combination. So a lot of crops are being preserved. A lot of indigenous crops are being preserved. So this is the description of this type of system. So we'll go to the semi-permanent polyculture cultivation system. This type of system, we look at the description, we see that there's average fallow period. Remember last on Monday, I told us that we can use the coherence coefficients to calculate, to discover the kind of system that we practice. So that is why you're having the figure there. 30 equals to R equals to 70. So if you calculate yours also, you will understand the kind of cultivation system that you're practicing. So in this semi-permanent polyculture cultivation system. They practice crop rotation, they combine a lot of crops together, and there is low use of chemical product, but it is higher than the itinerant. And then there's use of traditional and improved seed. Don't forget, in the itinerant, it is only traditional seeds that are allowed to use. So what are the impacts on the plot level? The impact is there's decrease in the organic matter in the soil because now there's use of little mineral fertilizer and pesticide. Then there's increased erosion. There's deterioration of soil fertility in this type of system. There's significant decrease in water infiltration in this type of system also. There's change in or disappearance of insects because now you have started using chemical or mineral fertilizer and chemical products. So the microorganisms and the macroorganisms starts disappearing. So what are the positive impacts of this type of system on the plots that you are practicing or that you are farming? There's partial recovery of soil fertility because there's still crop rotation. There's a very partial recovery of the vegetation cover. Also, there's limited repopulation of the fauna because there's still fallow period, there's still little crop rotation being done, there's still little crop combination that are being done. So you still see a limited and few possibilities of soil fertility and the fauna and organisms and microorganisms in the soil. But on the landscape, if we look at it on the bigger picture, what are the negative impacts of this type of system? The negative impact is significant negative changes to biodiversity because now there's use of chemical fertilizer and mineral fertilizers and chemical pesticide. So biodiversity is beginning to be lost in the farm. Then there's limited regeneration of the vegetation because now a lot of more intensive farming is being done. Then there's disappearance of many plant and animal species because now there's use of all these synthetic products. Increase of erosion damage, silting of water resources, destruction of ecological corridors because now there's increase, the fallow period also have reduced and there's increase in production. There's decrease in water resources that are available for farming. So what are the positive impacts of semi-permanent polyculture cultivation system on the landscape? We have partial regeneration of the vegetation because there is average fallow period. Then biological synergies between ecosystem and components. There's still a little there. Preservation of water quality, but not the quantity. So the quality is being preserved because there is low use of chemical, but the quantity is not preserved. Then there's healthy food for the population because it's still low use of synthetic input. And then there's use of traditional and improved seeds in this system. So we move on to the permanent polyculture cultivation system. In this system, there's still crop rotation. Now the fallow period is very short or non-existent. In fact, some do not have fallow period anymore. There's overexploitation of the plots because the plots, it is permanent, and it is like when you're planting tree crops, the tree crops that takes a long time that you don't cut down for a long time. So there's and you don't manage the system well by returning some nutrients back to the soil. So you are over exploiting the plot. Then there's crop combination and rotation in this system. There's simple plowing tools, animal drive, plowing of limited mechanization that is being used. Some organic matter management also are being used because they are permanent trees. So they drop their leaves, and then the leaves are degraded, and then they turn into manure to the soil. There's limited use of chemical products also in this type of system, and there's use of traditional or improved seeds. Then there's introduction of limited irrigation. So what are the impacts on the plots when you look at a plot plots, what are the impacts of this system and the descriptions that we have given. The impact is that the negative impact are significant deterioration of the vegetation, because now the fallow period is very low, or there is no fallow period again, and you are over exploiting the plot. Then there's no rates of rainwater infiltration in the ground, because now you have started using mechanization. You have increased your mechanization. You started increasing your synthetic products, and then you are also over exploiting the land. So the infiltration of water, rainwater into the ground level is getting low at this with this system. Then there's significant soil deterioration happening in this system, because now there's mechanization coming in, decrease in insect organisms and microorganisms in the soil. These are the negative impacts that we see on the plot in permanent polyculture cultivation system. Then in the positive, what are the positive impacts? Like I said, every system has their own positive and negative impact. There's preservation of crop diversity. There's a varietal diversity, diversity of pollinating insects, because now you're talking about tree crops because they are permanent. Then diversification of human food also. But on the landscape, on the bigger environment, what are the negative impact? The negative impact is deterioration of the vegetation cover, water and land resources. Because for example, if you want to grow avocado on a large scale for export, you have to clear a large expanse of land, get away with that vegetation. And it's going to take time, some years for such vegetation to build up again. So you are totally destroying the natural ecosystem that is there. Then there's flooding. If you're not careful, flooding will take place in such land. Then there's silting of waterways, lakes and pond, drying out of waterways, lakes and pond, no more fallow period. The fallow period has disappeared, and the disappearance of natural vegetation and pasture, because now we are clearing the entire space for production system. Then there's disappearance of multi-use plant species, and there's disappearance of animal species, notable birds, insects, and so on. And there's also edible mushrooms. Well, if we look at the forest, we can find edible mushrooms. But nowadays, you find that if you clear a particular land and then you come and plant even tree crops there over time, it takes years for the edible mushroom, forest mushroom to grow back. So sometimes it's totally eradicated from that landscape. Then there's destruction of ecological niches and corridors, because when you are doing the clearing of the land, you want to clear the buffer and everywhere is cleared, and then you want to do your mapping and all this. And all this affects the impact, the impact on the landscape of the environment. Now, what are the positive impacts of this system on the landscape? There's preservation of crop diversity, there's varietal diversity, there's diversity of pollinating insects, and then diversification of human food also, because it's a polyculture system, it's not a monoculture system. That is why we have diversification of human food. Okay, any question? Any question before we move on?
From my hand, no question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. So we go on to permanent monoculture cultivation system. Like we discussed on Monday, monoculture is a single type of planting system. So here we'll see that almost there is non-existence of fallow period in this type of system. There's over exploitation of the plots because people do not return the amount of nutrients that the plant takes from the soil. They don't return that quantity back into the soil. And then it's a single crop. So there's no diversification. There's no crop rotation in this type of system because it's permanent. There's heavy use of chemical products in this type of system because it is monoculture, and there's no diversity in this system. There's use of genetically modified seeds or improved seeds. It is allowed in permanent monoculture system. Then it's an average to large plots. They are not small plots because this is a business kind of system. And then there's little to significant mechanization. There's little mechanization because once you plow the first time and you plant the tree crops, you might not use any form of mechanization continuously. So what are the impacts of this type of system on the plots, on that plots that you are working on? The negative impacts are that there's change in soil structure over time. Then there's substantial reduction in plant species because now you have introduced the chemical products heavily. It's going to affect a lot of the ecological system in the plots. Then there's definite disappearance of wildlife, animals, birds, insects that will take place, and there's proliferation of plant diseases that will take place at this plot level. What are the positive impacts? Partial restoration of soil fertility via the use of mineral and organic fertilizer and relatively high crop yield. Yes, because you are using heavy use of chemicals, the crop yield will be high and it's a single crop. And so you have a lot of a single harvest from this type of plots. So what are the impacts of this permanent monoculture cultivation system on the landscape, on like a community or the entire farm itself? So there's increase in deforestation because you have to cut down a large portion of the land to cultivate and have good yield because it is monoculture and it is permanent. So you need large expanse of land to be able to provide the kind of yield to grow the kind of crops that will fit into this type of system. And also because this type of system, the tree crops that are grown, they have wide spacing. So you need a relatively large expanse of land to grow. So there's soil deterioration, acidification, and the rest happens in this type of soil because now you are using the chemical products heavily. Also, there's pollution of land and water resources because of the use of the chemical products. There's destruction or contamination of fishes because now the water bodies are polluted, and so the fish also are going to be contaminated. There's disappearance of several plant species because we know that the plant species that are dominant in that area, once you clear them off, they are not going to come again and you start using the chemical fertilizers. So also there's disappearance of pastures and natural habitats in this environment. Destruction of ecological niches and corridors, and then decrease or disappearance of pollinating insects. This type of system has a lot of negative impact on the landscape, and the only positive impact is that there's crop rotation because you can inside the monoculture, you can grow certain crops also within the rows, and then you can practice crop rotation. And then also some of these crops has a number of years that you can, even as a tree crop, that they can grow. After some time, after the number of years, they start decreasing in yield, and then you have to cut them down and plant another crop. So we want to look at what is the difference between the impact of biodiversity at the plots and landscape level in your horticultural farm. So we give 1 minute to each person to speak. What is the impact? Or if you are not in a good place to speak, you can please type the impact of biodiversity at the plot level and at the landscape level in your own horticultural farm. So who is going to start? Mr. Ibrahim, will you start for us? Hello, Ibrahim. Are you with us? Matthew, are you with us?
Yes, please.
Okay, can you share with us? Okay, Ibrahim wants to type, so we're waiting for you. You can type, please. So Matthew, can you share with us?
Yes. Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Yes.
Hello, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. So for our side here, I think we can classify our system here under the semi-permeable polyculture cultivation system over here. Looking at the things we do here, at least over here, we are cultivating both local and then the improved varieties over here. Well, at least we are destroying. we sometimes overexploit in order to make the land available, because it's a bit sharp, thick forest here, so you have to probably do a lot of distraction before you can produce. Then we are also doing our best. We are putting some small trees around. So, but in all, if you look at our environment here, based on what we are doing, the plowing, we also have our own farm implements, our tractors, and then our harvesters. So, if looking at it worldwide, well, the environment definitely is being affected because we pull down a lot of trees, and then we destroy a lot of habitats on the farm. And then looking at in general, that's why over here flooding and then soil erosion is very rare over here. You see it on our farms, and then on the whole distance, sometimes we get a lot of flooding over here. So I think, and then looking at, because of what is happening, sometimes we do have to use a lot of synthetic agrochemicals in order to just control pests and diseases on the farm, which is more prevalent in our open field cultivation. Besides, you see fertility, soil fertility in general on our plots of cultivation is a matter also, because by in the day out, despite we are adding more of organic fertilizer, but sometimes you have to still use the inorganic fertilizers in order to make a break even or to get something. Here, if you plan, you don't add fertilizer, so probably they will do well, but you will not get the needed yield. So we are still relying on the synthetic, the inorganic fertilizer for production. So our soil fertility here averagely is low. So I think these are some of the impacts on our environment, and then the plots of that we are cultivating over here in terms of biodiversity on our production system here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Matthew. Okay, so I'd like to read what Ibrahim has written. They said at the plot level, especially in the open field, different crops have really helped on planning because they have different crop cycles and it makes pest control easy. Okay, good. Mr. Jonathan, if you can hear us, can you type also and share with us what is the difference between the impact of biodiversity at the plot and landscape level in your horticultural farm? So we move on to the next cultivation system. We have the perennial cultivation system, and we all know what perennial is. So perennial cultivation system, these are majorly plantations like cocoa, coffee, rubber, palm tree, cashew, the citrus, and the rest. And no plowing is done after you have planted them. You don't plow again, but you weed continuously. And there's significant plant debris because the leaves will always shed, and then the new leaves will come up. So, and as they drop onto the soil, they increase the organic matter of the soil, and then it can be combined with other crops. You can combine different crops together. Your different trees can also be combined. Livestock, beekeeping can also be done on the farm. There's a lot of people now that have tree crops, and then they have beehives in the farm. And there's high use of insecticide. Yes, this type of system, you use a high level of insecticide. What are the impacts of this perennial cultivation system on the plot level? What are the negative impacts? Is that animal species decreases if the use of insecticide is not regulated. And most of the time, because of the level of yield that we want to get, we tend to use a lot of synthetic insecticide. What are the positive impact? We have soil conservation because the soil is not disturbed. We have soil rich in organic matter because the leaves are shedding, and then they are decomposing, and then that is organic matter added back to the soil freely, and the plants, the trees also take up this organic matter to use. There's increased water and infiltration and better ability to retain water in this type of system, because there's a lot of decomposition of the residues from the tree crops, and so the structure even of the soil will be different, and then there's a lot of air pores in the soil, and so when there's a lot of air going into the soil, there's a lot of pores in the soil. Its ability to retain, the soil has ability to retain more water, and then because the roots of the tree crops travel so far down, they are able to keep a lot of water at the ground level table, and then the tree crops take them up gradually. Then there's presence of organisms and microorganisms on and in the soil because of. Can you still see my screen? Can you still see my screen, please?
Yes, okay.
Okay, please. Thank you. There is presence of organisms and microorganisms on and in the soil because of the decomposition that regularly takes place naturally. And there's presence of insects and molluscs. Yes, because of the decomposition and that takes place. And then because you're not disturbing the soil anymore after the first plowing and planting season. So what are the negative impacts of this type of system on the landscape? We have food imbalance for certain animals or species, because sometimes some will just focus on coffee or one crop, or have few other crops planted in between, but there's imbalance because what this animal species likes or bird like is not what the other one likes. So what are the positive impacts? We can see that in this system there is less negative impact on either the plot level or on the landscape level. We have more positive impacts. So the positive impact is that preservation of water and land resources. There is the waterways, lakes and ponds are protected against silting, and then there's partial recovery of ecological niches and corridors. So these are the positive impacts of this type of system on the landscape. So I have, okay, Jonathan has written for the questions that we asked before, that at the plots level in the horticultural farm, there is much practice on monoculture, like avocado farming, where by first you cut a lot of trees to start farming, hence affecting the environment. Yes, when you want to start an avocado farm, you have to cut down all the trees in that plot or in that landscape, and then you map and then plant your avocado. And we all know that the tree will not grow to the level it is, or the level at which the other trees were cut down in 2 years or in 1 year. So it's going to take a longer time. And in that process, there's going to be a lot of environmental pollution taking place. So
Hello, may I use there? Is Ibrahim there?
So, okay, so we were supposed to do a Zoom breakout session, but let's continue so that we can discuss because we need more participants to fill in the breakout session. So, sorry, I'm going too fast. We want to look at the agroforestry system. Agroforestry simply means the combination of crops and trees together in the same plot or in the same landscape, trees remaining after clearing, and that's the trees that are there, you also leave some of the indigenous or the trees that you meet that are beneficial to that environment. You don't clear everything, and you plant new ones. And this helps that there's a continuous natural regeneration of the ecosystem. So what are the impacts of the negative impact of on the plot level when you practice agroforestry system? There's competition for light, because now you need to try to manage which crop will not overshade the other one. Which crop do you put at the north part? Which crop do you put at the south part? So there's competition for light using agroforestry system. There's reduced crop yield because a lot of trees are planted in this system, and so if you are measuring, okay, what should be the yield of a vegetable, the vegetable you are planting on, for example, on an acre, you cannot get that same quantity, or you have other benefits that the system will give to you. So there's habitat for crop pests also, because now you're planting a lot of combinations together. But what are the positive impacts on the plot level? Shades to protect crops against high temperature, especially the vegetables. You have shade to cover them up, especially also during the high temperature seasons. Then there's decrease in soil erosion because you have a lot of trees planted. There's increase in soil water retention capacity because of the trees that are combined with the vegetables or with the other crops that you plant. There's decrease in water evaporation from the soil. There's recycling of soil nutrients in the soil, because when these trees are there, they drop the manure. They drop the manure. They drop their trees, their leaves, and then these leaves are decomposted. And then when they decompose in the soil, they had manure or organic matter back into the soil. There's decrease in water evaporation from the soil because there's a coverage by these trees. So the evaporation from the soil, water evaporation is reduced drastically. There's recycling of soil nutrients. We talked about that. There's creation of microclimates and niches for insects and birds. There's diversity of plant species. different age and layouts in the different areas. There's preservation of soil fertility because there's also we planted a lot of trees. There's balanced food supply for insects and birds because they can feed on the trees that are planted and the ones that are indigenous or for in that environment. There is wood production, that's diversification of income for also the farmers or for the owner of the business. So what are the impacts on the landscape? What are the negative impacts? There's habitats for crop pests because now there's a lot of combination of different crops and trees that are being planted. So it might induce crop pests to increase on your farm. Then there's reduced pasture carry capacity to reduce damage to trees. What are the positive impact? The positive impact is temperate microclimate. So you can create a temperate microclimate in your farm where you have a lot of trees, and you can see that the temperature will be so different from where there are no trees planted in agroforestry pattern. Then there's also shelter and reproduction and wintering area. There's increased diversity of the ecological niches. There's diversification of fauna and flora organisms. There's regulation of the water cycle. There's preservation and restoration of soil fertility. It's healthy, it's balanced, and productive agro system is what happened at the agroforestry system. We're going to look at this other system. We look at the organic cultivation system. The organic cultivation system, synthetic or chemical products or genetically modified organisms are not used at all, are not allowed. Soil fertilization with organic matter is being used. There's green fertilizer. You do a lot of compost. You do vermicompost. A lot of green fertilizer is being used that are friendly to the environment instead of the ones that are harsh, which are synthetic. There's very high agriculture stroke livestock pairing. In organic, we advocate that there's integrated farming is being used. Then you must do crop rotation. You must combine a lot of crops also in organic farming. What are the impacts, the negative impact on the plot? There's lower crop yield than a conventional agriculture because the intake of the organic matter is slower than when you use synthetic. Over time, it's going to build up. If you continue using the right quantity of compost, it will build up over time and then you can have the same yield. But at the beginning, because probably the land is already destroyed, you might not have the same yield like conventional agriculture. Then there's more labor that is required in organic. You have to do a lot of work on the farm manually. Then there's positive. What are the positive impacts on the plot level? There's less water and energy consumption when you practice organic, yes. There's preservation of soil fertility, preservation of water resources, both qualitatively and quantitatively. You can preserve a lot of water because of the practices that you are going to use in the organic system. Then there's preservation of insect diversity. There's healthy agricultural production. Vegetables contain more minerals and nutrients than those grown by conventional method. This is already a scientific proven result that crops grown using the organic cultivation system are more healthy and they contain more minerals and nutrients than the conventional method. What are the impacts on the landscape? The negative impact is limited use of the space available to enable crop rotation and fallow periods. This is what happened at the landscape. But what are the positive impacts? There's crop rotation and fallow period. There's preservation of water and land resources. There's preservation of animal species diversity. There's production of healthy agricultural products. There's job creation in the zone because it requires labor. So people are able to work and get money to feed or to take care of their families. For example, if you want to spray one piece of plot with a synthetic weedicide, one person can finish 1 acre in 1 day. But if you want to use a manual hand to weed, they cannot, one person cannot finish weeding in 1 day. So it means that the person using labor will have more money to pay for his system. Okay. So we'll go on and look at the agroecological cultivation system. What are the what does the system, what does it entail? There's combination of different crops in this type of system. There's combination of these different crops with trees and also with livestock. There's crop rotation. We do organic fertilization. There's light no labor in agroecological cultivation system. There's also that it is not allowed to use genetically modified seeds. They are not allowed. There's complementary of crops, trees, animals. So there's diversity in the system. There's a lot of diversity in the system, and all these animals and insects and crops, they live together, they cohabit together and make a good resource or good food for the human beings to eat. So what are the impacts on the plot level, the negative impact on the plot level? We have the natural phytosanitary treatments are often less effective than synthetic chemical products, but beneficial in the medium to long term. So the systems that we practice, the phytosanitary treatments that we give, it takes time also for you want to understand what a natural pesticide that you use for this crop. If you don't have knowledge, you have to do a lot of research. You have to do a lot of asking. You also have to do a lot of trials on your own. But when you do all that also, and you don't use the synthetic and harsh ones, it's also has a beneficial impact on your environment in the long term. There's lower individual crop yield, but high total crop yield when considered together. So because you are combining different crops and with also animals and other things, at the long run, your overall yield from the plot is higher. But when you look at each crop, you might have low yield. There's also requires significant labor. Labor is required in this system. So what are the positive impacts? It fights soil erosion, biomass recycling, improved soil fertility, there is improved biological soil activities, the crop production staggered over time. You can get diversified food from the system. And it's like a closed loop that's one species in the system is helping or supplying what the other system needs. So what are the negative impacts on the landscape? There's a large area required because there's rotation, there's fallow, and then also you want to get significant yield even from whatever you are planting. What are the positive impacts on the landscape? We have a lot of positive impact on the landscape because there's reduced artificial inputs. So when these are not used, there's less harm to the environment, to the water bodies, and even to people around. There's fight against desertification, meaning that there's less deforestation. Also, it's also preservation of biodiversity is increasing in this type of system. There's healthy food for the population. There's job creation. There's stabilization of population in their ecosystems. So the animals, the flora and fauna animals, they keep multiplying in their system. Okay. So we need to look at the other system that we have not talked about, which is the irrigated cultivated system. When we look at the irrigated cultivated system, it is generally a single crop, less fallow period also. We use a lot of irrigation in this type of system, and the irrigation source is always either rivers, lakes, or you dig a dam, or you dig your own water. And then you can also use recycled water. And then the type of irrigation system that you use also depend on the type of crop that you are growing. What are the negative impacts on the plot level? The negative impact is that there is salinization resulting in the sterilization of soils, excuse me, resulting in the disappearance of plant and animal species. There's pollution of groundwater and waterways, because also it's an intensive farming system, and there's use of chemical products, and so there's pollution in the groundwater level. There is drying out of the plots if the implementation is not done properly also. So what are the positive impacts of this system on the plots level? Is potential crop diversification, and then you are able to grow throughout the whole season, whether dry season or whether there's rain or there's no rain, you're able to grow, and that means it increases agricultural production, which we might have losses during the drought period. For example, in Kenya now you are experiencing drought again. There is no rain coming as it should be, and it's difficult for smallholder farmers or for even individuals to grow, except those who have water, access to water, and have irrigation on their farm. What are the impacts on the landscape? The negative impact is there's destruction of the ecosystem. There's drying out of water sources, because if a lot of people depend on a particular water source for irrigating, and then there are no rains to fill the river, then there's problem, because also we are also taking the space or the resources that other people might be using. For example, a village that depends on a particular dam for their survival. That is what they use to eat, cook, and even drink. And then there's a farm that has been located there, and they're pumping water from that same dam. The quantity of water that you're going to use per day will be very high, and that will leave a negative impact on the environment, on the community itself. What are the positive impacts on the landscape? There's food security for the population. There's socioeconomic development of the zone, because now people have to work, people have to be employed to mount the irrigation and to operate them. So these are the impacts that you have from the environment. So this brings us to the end of the class today and session today. I will hand over to Ayo to take us through what we need to do. But before we go on to that, I'll quickly share my screen and then share with us the assignments that we have for the week, which we have to do. Permits me to share my screen. We have 2 assignments that we need to do this week. Can we all see my screen, please? Can we all see my screen, please? Hello? Hayo, are you there? Can we see my screen? Ibrahim,
Yes, we
can you
can.
see? Okay, thank you. So this week we have 2 assignments. We need to do a presentation on the agroecological characteristics of our horticultural farms. So what we are going to do is to estimate the area occupied by the semi-natural or natural species in hectares. And these figures, I'm sure all horticultural farms, you have all these figures already. You are going to express this in this with this formula, and just follow the what the formula means, and just put the figures there, and then you will get the percentage. Then the B says that you determine or describe how you have influenced the biodiversity of the ecosystem that you are working on. So in few lines, you just
Allow me. Ibrahim. Ibrahim?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
All right. Okay, good. I think we lost
It's our
Allow me there.
network.
Yes. Okay. So having discussed the assignments that we are supposed to do, may I know if anybody is clear with the assignment, please? Before I move on to share my screen. Are you all clear with the assignment, please?
No, because I'm just joining in again now because of
Oh.
network issue. I don't understand the assignment.
It's okay. It's okay. We'll quickly go through the assignment. Okay, please permit me to share my screen. I'm still very much with you, please. Yeah, I need to just log in again. Okay, so for the assignment, so I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, allow me, you are back.
yes, I'm back.
All right, good to know
Sorry.
you're back.
Okay, so I
Okay,
can continue.
Yeah, let me stop sharing then. Okay, please, you can go ahead. Please share your screen.
Okay.
Jonathan and somebody has just joined, Ibrahim. So they said they are unclear with the assignment.
Okay, so I am going to share my screen. I was describing the first assignment. Basically, the first assignment is exercise 4 that you will see on the e-learning platform. Is basically for you to measure the areas where there is natural vegetation and the areas where you are cultivating, and then you get a percentage. So remember that we talked about the coefficient ratio. So we are using this also formula to kind of get what is the area at which you are actually cultivating and what is the area that you have as a natural resource or natural environment. So these are the area that that you have to measure in the first assignment. Then the second assignment, which is exercise 5, is more of observation and analysis. We are going to observe the domestic biodiversity in your horticultural farms, and you are going to bring out a conclusion. And when this is you're going to do the number of plants or species that you grow. So definitely you know what you grow. Then you're going to state the presence of imported variety or the local varieties. How many are local variety? How many are imported variety? So it's something that you are doing on the farm or that is already even documented in the farm. For especially those who do export, all these are documented already in the farm. And then you level of availability of various seeds. Do you have the seeds? Yes or no? They are very simple questions. Impact of pests on your crops. What are the impact of pests on your crops? You just explain in 2 lines. Or you have this type of pests. This is the impact of them. Are they heavy? Are they light? You just describe what is your production system. So with all that we have discussed, you should be able to say, okay, this is the type of production system that we practice here. And then you describe the practices used in the enterprise, like plowing ridges. Do you plow? Do you do fallow? Do you do crop rotation? You just list or crop rotation, fallow, we practice fallow period for maybe 2 years. We use mechanization, irrigation. You just state it there. And then you say, is there a monoculture, fallow? So that is, for example, I'm asking again those questions. So you just state all the things like what's your production system. The description of your production system is what we are asking in that next question, like the ones that I've shared that I described. I describe them in bullet points. So it's not that you're going to explain everything. Then the quantitative indicators of your horticultural farm. That is what you got in assignment number 4, the quantitative indicators and the qualitative indicators. So you're just going to state them there from what you get in assignment 4. So on the WhatsApp group also, in the evening, I will explain further because our time is going. I will explain further the IEI and the EI also better on the WhatsApp group for all of us to understand and how to calculate it. Then the pressure indicators, your potential impact of your agricultural practices on the environment. What is the impact? We were talking about the impact on the plot level and the impact on the landscape. So this is asking you that on the impact of your system on the landscape. Then the next question says the number of notable plants or animals. Are there animal species on your farm? What is the notable number that you can note? The number of individual of each species. You don't have to like think of everything. You should be able to have an estimate. Okay, over the time that you have worked in the farm, what do you see? Like earthworms and this. Do we have earthworms? Or do we have termites? Do we have butterflies? Do we have wild animal, other animals? Have I ever seen a monkey? So it's just 2-3 figures there, and that is it. Then the potential impacts related to the type of clearing. What type of clearing do you do? Manual or you use plowing or mechanized one? What is the impact of it? Then what is the impact of agricultural machinery on your horticultural farm? Then with all this, you can now, the last activity is that you judge the state of biodiversity on your farm and the threats of biodiversity of the system you are practicing. What is the threat that is causing your horticultural farm? So that is the assignment. But please, if you're doing it at any point, ask questions on the group page. When you ask us questions, they will be able to answer if you are confused about anything. Ayo, over to you, please.
All right, thank you very much for allowing me. So please permit me to share my screen. So while I show you what we are supposed to go through, allow me, as already shared with us, the assignment we need to attempt in the course of the weekend. Now, when you come to the e-learning platform, I want to believe everyone on board is now familiar with this e-learning platform, talking about sustainable management of biodiversity. We are all familiar with this. Am I audible, please?
Yes, Ayo.
All
You
right,
are.
thank you very much. So you'll have been seeing all of this. We have the CP presentation, introduction. We have gone through week 1, and expectedly some of us have attempted the exercises. And let me say coincidentally now, the 3 of us on board now are the ones that have attempted the exercise. Then week 2 or so, the same thing has been applicable. 3 of us, maybe one other person have also attempted the exercises. And we're in week 3 now. If you go to the week 3, you will agree with me that the 4 objectives that we needed to achieve in the course of this week have already been achieved through the training. Allow me to talk us through. And these are what to do for every participant. Just on your phone, this one does not require so much bandwidth. On your phone, just open to the e-learning platform and go through what to do. And what are you expected to do? Go through the module course materials. These are the materials. You can see the materials here. Scrum, the PPT that allow me use the identify methods and techniques. Then there is the video accompanying the training session in the part of biodiversity and how to restore. Then we have the mini quiz. So those are the things you go through. Then you said watch the selected videos, just like I've said. Then attempt the mini quiz, just as I've mentioned. Then complete the module homework and activity. That is what allow me just shared with every one of us. Just go there, attempt it. It's not for you to, it's not a pass or fail kind of exercise. It's just to test our attention. It's just to test that, just to evaluate if we are following. That is what we are going to use to know another perspective to getting the training across to us. So that's all we want to do with that exercise. Then you discuss the module key messages on the forum. We have the forum. The forum is on the e-learning platform, and the forum is also on WhatsApp. You can discuss, just like Allow Me said, come up with a discussion, and you will get a response. So then if you go down, you'll see the overall instructions. If you click on it, you see the overall instructions. And then there is this live session. This session, we're going to embed the Monday live session that we recorded. We're going to embed it here. And this one that we are concluding now is also going to be embedded here. They're going to fine. If you check the Zoom recording, this live session, the one on Monday, have already been embedded, and we're going to embed this one that we are just concluding. So you can fall back to them and get familiar with what we have discussed, or if there's any vital point you have lost, you can of course get acquainted with it, and you are going to gain more knowledge. So I want to advise that we go through this Scrum very well, and you get more knowledge from what we are discussing. So like I said earlier on, we observe carefully that many of us have not been able to attempt the exercises. I want to admonish that if there is any difficulty in attempting these exercises, just chat us up on WhatsApp, and we get them solved for you. We assist you with the assignment. And peradventure, the internet where you are is not so stable, it's not so strong. All you need to do is just to do it on, just do it on a Word document, send it to us. You can send it to my email, you can send it to Allow Me's email. You can even attach it on WhatsApp. Of course, we evaluate it, and we get the score back to you. So with this, we want to say a big thank you to you all for paying attention. We want to appreciate you for your commitment. And we hope that by Monday, all the assignments that are expected of all of us will have been accomplished. Let me ask if Allow Me has something to say from our hand.
The last thing I want to say is that they should please not forget to do the test your knowledge on each week, test your knowledge. And we should be encouraged because next week is the last week. And by Friday, it means that the certificate has to be out. And so, like I said before, there's a percentage that COLE-ACP enables that person must cross before the certificate is released. So all these assignments are things that we can see that it's practical. It's something that will help us to even understand our establishment better and help us to identify those things in our various establishments. And so it is not a theoretical class, but something that will help us to spark knowledge in what we do. Thank you.
All right, from all of us here, we want to appreciate you. Want to appreciate your commitment once again. And we want to wish you a lovely weekend. So from me, say bye from now.
Bye.